from filmfestivalcircuit.com and the director of the Oregon Documentary Film Festival. The Oregon Documentary Film Festival Summer 2022 event took place at the Clinton Street Theater, and we had a fun time in August. It was a great slate of films. We screened almost 6 hours of programming. One of those films was Teacher of Patience, and we're joined by director Carmen Vincent today. Hi, Carmen.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, and congrats for finishing as a finalist for the Best Documentary Film Award. That's a high honor.
Thank you. I'm incredibly honored.
You earned it. The judges loved it. There definitely wasn't a bad scorecard, and they were very impressed just by the footage you captured, your story, how long you were embedded. I'm not going to give the story away, but how long you were embedded, and just all of the personal moments that you gathered. You had laughs, you had tears, you had giggles, you had smiles, you really had people connect with your creative work, and good job on that.
Thank you. That's so good to hear.
Well, I'd like you to tell us what the synopsis of your film is, whatever you can release in your own words. What can you tell us about it?
So Teacher of Patience is a short documentary about an Indiana family's efforts to educate first responders about Down syndrome and disability at large. They conduct presentations called the Emily Talk, which is named after daughter Emily, who has Down syndrome. And they go around teaching first responders and the community at large about, practical ways and tips to interact with folks with disabilities on a daily basis.
Wow, yeah. Well, you did a good job of showing us that world and showing us a need for, that training and that awareness that I never would have thought of. I just would have never thought of it. And I think the mark of a good documentary film is when you take us into a little bit of a world that we're not used to seeing. Mm-hmm. It seems sorry to cut you off, but it seems like there's a very personal connection or a reason why you decided to take up this project. Why did you put your time, effort, and energy into telling this story?
Yeah, so this is a personal project for me, not only because the family featured in this film has become an extended family of mine of sorts, just from how close we got through making this film, but also because I am part of the disability community. I have obsessive compulsive disorder, so it is always on top of mind for how I can bring more disability awareness to the table and have those conversations. So I really admire how the family in this film bring up those conversations, but in a really practical way for a group, first responders who deserve to have that kind of education and deserve to be informed about that population, because it is such a large marginalized community. It's important in emergency situations, especially, that folks are prepared for what they might encounter and how to treat people with disabilities with dignity and respect.
Well, you said a mouthful there, and it's like you experience, it's something you don't quite experience. And I'll tell a story that relates to it, but I know is not the same thing.
Sure.
But my wife recently, she had a knee injury where she had to get a repair. She'll be back on her feet in no time. But for 6 weeks, she spent time in a wheelchair because, obviously she could put 0% weight on that knee. And it's not until you start putting the wheelchair in the car, driving around, pulling the wheelchair out, finding ramps, finding out how many places are inaccessible, finding out how many places don't work. And you start to realize that maybe you haven't quite been paying attention to how that world has to deal with those issues. And it sounds like, thanks for being transparent about your own condition, but it really sounds like you have like a new understanding of this situation.
Absolutely. And I love that story because it's an example of how anybody can become disabled in the blink of an eye. It's really important to have systems and structures in place that can support all of these different kinds of disabilities, because you're right, we can break a knee or end up needing to use a wheelchair or, develop dementia. Like, there are all kinds of disabilities that can happen without us expecting to have them or to be born with them. And you're also right that it's really hard to think about those things until you've had those experiences or talked to someone with those experiences. So that's why films that touch on disability are so important, because they do give that firsthand experience to you, right in front of you.
Sure. Well, it seems like I don't know how long you spent on this. You're going to have to tell me how long you were actually in production, because it seemed like you were there for a long time getting good moments. But that leads me to my next question is, not only how long did it take, but what did you learn in this production?
So this was a 2-year production. It started out as a passion project on my own. That was going to be my senior thesis, a 10-minute quick, something I upload to YouTube, and it morphed into this really ambitious project with a budget and a crew and, impact campaign behind it. It became something so much greater than I thought it would be, and through that, I learned that I cannot do this on my own. I've done short films on my own in the past. This is a step up. And to step up even further, my next goal, my next film is to be able to bring on a full crew, to be able to fundraise a budget for a full crew, just because there's such value in capitalizing on other people's expertise. Because it's really hard to be an expert in editing and cinematography and audio and et cetera, and fundraising and producing. So to bring in people who are experts in those niches only makes your film stronger, and that's definitely something I learned throughout this filmmaking process.
Sure. So is school where you started as a filmmaker, or did your passion start before that?
Yeah, I guess I have that typical story of I was making films when I was 10, 11, 12, just editing them in Windows Movie Maker, but it really started getting serious for me in college. I got a degree in digital media, so I also learned graphics and website design just in case I needed to, make a living, and because sometimes it's hard to make a living as an independent filmmaker. But yeah, I ended up doing a video internship in Bethlehem, Palestine, and got to meet Israelis and Palestinians and hear both sides of the story of the conflict over there. And that's when it hit me that I need documentaries where my heart is. There are real stories out here that need to be told, real people who deserve to have their voices amplified. And I have not stopped ever since. I've always been working on a documentary for the past 5 years since I was a freshman in college.
Wow. Interesting. Well, you're doing it and you're good at it, and we can't wait to see more. You're very welcome. What is it you have next on your plate?
So up next, we're focusing on the impact campaign that coincides with Teacher of Patience. So trying to get this film in front of first responders, into first responder training curriculum, meaning statewide platforms, working with local governments to have events where we can have training sessions and Q&As with the film. So that's a lot of outreach that we're focusing on. At the same time, I'm also in development for my next short, which might end up being a feature. We'll see. But I'm always thinking about the next thing, as well as trying to make the most out of what we're working on currently. So I think a lot of filmmakers do that. We're just excited about telling stories.
All right. Well, man, I look forward to seeing, what else you put out. And it sounds like this film, to structure it in a training environment would be interesting to see how you do that. But I think that anyone who sits down and watches this is going to learn something. They're going to learn something about the situations that you presented. They're definitely going to learn. So best of luck. I hope you get it in front of people that really need to see it. Was there anything else that you'd like to add before we go today?
Yeah, I just want to say a huge thank you to the judges and all of the people who have worked in the Oregon Documentary Film Festival. I guess crew, staff of people, the team that makes it all happen, because filmmakers like me who are from small town Indiana, making films in small town Indiana, to be able to have their film screened in Portland, in front of an audience of people who probably have incredibly different backgrounds and perspectives, it means a lot. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity, and it's been awesome connecting with you and all the other filmmakers involved. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And you're very welcome. You make us look good with your productions, and we're excited to show, just great stories as frequently as we can, and yours fit right along with it. So we appreciate you, and we're definitely looking forward to the future, and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thanks. Have a good one.